But there was a big contractual change that took place there in terms of where the risks for this project lay. And in an exchange with Sharon Dowie, Ms Rooney said, and I'll quote the words back, "This certainly isn't a blank cheque. If that is the suggestion, ministers have been really clear with the board, with the management team, with the workforce, that these vessels need to be delivered within the budget that they have been allocated. Each organisation, each part of the government that is involved in this, Ferguson, CMAL and the Scottish Government, all share that obligation to deliver as efficiently as possible with an active value for money, so there is no blank cheque." And that was the account you gave to the committee just a matter of a few minutes ago. But if you go to paragraph 105 of the Auditor General's report, it says, "As part of the new contract arrangements, the Scottish Government is committed to pay in full FMPG's vessel costs regardless of the final price." That is a blank cheque, isn't it?
I would restate what I said before, that we're all parts of government working together with that eye to efficiency economy. And I mean, certainly the Cabinet Secretary has been very clear, as I say, with the Yard, the board, with the workforce as well, that she expects these vessels delivered on budget. And clearly it's key to the reputation of the Yard going forward as well. And that's the workforce and the management team they're not looking just to build out these ferries, they're looking to the future of the Yard as well. So they're very mindful of their reputation going forward as well.
I accept all of that, but by the point of nationalisation, there was a material change in where the risk and for future cost overruns was shifted. It was shifted onto the taxpayer, essentially. And you're the Deputy Director of Strategic Commercial Interventions. You should be able to read a contract. The way the contract is now effectively laid out is a blank cheque, isn't it? The taxpayer will continue to fund these vessels until they're completed or until some other decision is taken.
I mean, certainly we would continue to continually assess value for money, so there is no blank cheque. I mean, were there to be a suggestion of an increase, we would certainly be advising ministers on what the value for money position was there. So this isn't this isn't a blank cheque. In terms of the contracts, the new contracts that were put in place, there was, like I say, there was a lot of thought that went in behind that to find the most appropriate contractual mechanism. So around that, it was about reflecting the accountability structures as they were and the different roles of the organisations in this new and quite unusual environment, but also to find the most financially efficient way of doing that. So the contracts as configured allow the vessels to be appropriately funded out of capital budgets as opposed to resource budgets.
But it's still taxpayers' monies. But absolutely. So we're basically now 5.5 years late and at least £250 million. Where might this end up?
Well, our most current advice from Ferguson's and from CMAL is that the vessels are progressing in line with the new schedule, and I think we all look forward to seeing these vessels in service on these lifeline routes just as soon as possible. And
if it's another 50 million, for example, who pays that? Where does that come from?
Well, as I say, we would continually assess value for money. So there is no blank cheque here, and we would assess the value for money position should any suggestion of that nature arise.
If I may, Convener, because I undertook the functions of the accountable officer at the time when the report came in March that the costs of the vessels was going to increase, and at that stage a process takes place. The accountable officer applies the accountable officer tests. One of the considerations that I would have had and the accountable officer in any future iterations around the costs of the vessels would have is whether it continues to represent best value, whether it continues to represent the best opportunity to get those ferries delivered in the reasonable timetable, whether it continues to deliver value for money compared to alternatives, and the alternatives, of course, are to stop and to reprocure, and all of the timetable increase and the issues for the Yard and the workforce that would bring. Those decisions are looked at. They're taken very seriously, and we don't write blank cheques for public money.
Okay, but just my final question. So there is still the possibility that you could pull the plug on these two vessels?
There's the opportunity every time any decisions that are taken around the financing and the allocation of public money to the vessels, the appropriate tests and assessments are applied. And that will happen always, and that will always happen.
But yes or no, there is still a possibility you pull the plug on these two vessels?
We're determined to deliver these vessels. We understand that they're vital for communities, and that will be our focus.
But it is a yes or no answer.
Well, it's unfortunately it's trying to draw me into the realms of speculation where decisions on these things are taken by ministers, and I don't think I'm going to be able to add anything to it other than I know that our team is monitoring the progress of the vessels. We're working very closely with with Ferguson's, and I also know that we are responsible as accountable officers within the organisation for applying the right tests and making the right recommendations for ministers, and that we will continue to do.
So you still reserve the right to recommend to ministers they pull the plug?
The decisions on all matters relating to those things are taken by